I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey you guys, and welcome back to the News du Jour. So today I wanted to let you guys know that Sugar Free Media, which is sort of our parent company, our overarching brand, we are hosting a girls' night out in Oklahoma City. So if you live nearby or in OKC, definitely consider coming out with us. It's going to be so fun. The last time we did something like this, it was a happy hour, just kind of a meetup. And long story short, we closed down the bar. So it was so fun. Just a bunch of girls hanging out, talking about anything under the sun. It actually ended up being kind of an awesome networking situation because everyone there was such a cool professional with something else that they were doing that was super interesting. So if you're interested in meeting some other women in the area and just hanging out and having a fun night out in the town, we're going to be meeting up at Black Walnut at 7 p.m. on Friday, and I'll be really excited to see you guys there. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and hop into our episode. So Adnan Syed, there's an update with the case. So this will be just a quick story, but I want to let you guys know that there's a huge update. Adnan Syed, his case has been completely dropped by the prosecutors. So if you guys are confused and you're like, who is this person? If you guys remember the podcast Serial, this is the guy who may or may not have killed the woman the podcast is about, which is Hae-Min Lee. And if you guys remember, where I left you was that he was being released and the prosecutor's office had a month to decide whether or not to file new charges against him. Well, now is that time, and they have opted not to move forward with new charges. Now, the reasoning that they gave was that the DNA found at the crime scene excluded Adnan from the list of suspects. It just could not have been him definitively based on the DNA evidence that they have in their possession. So that's pretty huge, you guys. This is finally a kind of definitive answer that we've been needing all this time because Serial made it hard to know what to think at times during the podcast. So it is unclear as of right now whether Mr. Syed will seek any type of restitution against the state for his wrongful conviction. But I bet after 23 years of being locked up while innocent, he's just glad to be home with his family right now. So let's hope that they keep looking into this case and keep fighting for answers for Hae-Min Lee, who was killed far too young and still deserves justice. And now, next up, we wanted to issue a content warning here at the top of the story. So this story contains serious hate speech against the Jewish community. So, of course, today we're talking about Kanye crossing the line. Okay, guys. So Kanye has officially gone to the dark side. I'm pretty upset about what we've heard from him this week. You all followed along with the drama last week via his podcast, but the craziness now has taken a left turn into directly wishing death on people. He took to Twitter, you guys, Twitter of all places, to literally write, quote, "When I wake up, I am going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people," end quote. He went on to say in the same tweet, quote, "The funny thing is, I can't actually be anti-Semitic because Black people are actually Jew also. You guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who ever opposes your agenda. End quote. Where to begin here? Maybe let's start with, this is awful, hateful, and completely abhorrent. The Jewish people have been murdered literally in the millions for their race and their faith, and they've been through enough. We all know anti-Semitism is on the rise right now, and statements like this from someone as well known as Kanye West are only going to pour accelerant all over that fire that's been simmering. We really don't need Kanye emboldening actual human trash that is still discriminating against Jews and saying he's going to kill them. Okay? This is too far. There's certainly room for a discussion about Kanye and his mental health right now, but it just doesn't excuse this type of language and violent language. It reminds me of, when he ran for president and all of a sudden decided to insult the entire Kardashian family on Twitter. Remember that? And it was just plunging off the deep end. Only now, this time, he's done so much bashing of his own family already that it became old news. He had to move on to even more explosive commentary, and so he poked where he knew he'd get a reaction. And he did. Both Twitter and Instagram have now taken disciplinary action against his accounts. But let's go ahead and touch on the events that led up to this tweet, though, so that you guys can understand the context. So you see, he first posted something more mildly anti-Semitic on Instagram saying, quote, "I'ma use you as an example to show the Jewish people that told you to call me that no one can threaten or influence me. I told you this was war." End quote. So then Instagram deleted this because obviously it's anti-Semitic. But that's what led to this more extreme tweet. He said he was going to, quote, DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, end quote, because Instagram had the audacity to delete a post that violated their guidelines. How dare they? Anyway, he's now suspended on Twitter because he violated their guidelines. You have to play by the rules, y'all. And hate speech, it's not okay. It leads to violence. We're done with it. And so unless he cuts it out, we're kind of done with Kanye, because the more hateful he gets, the more he's going to be suspended and the less we are going to hear from him. In terms of his mental health, though, to kind of circle back to that, his ex-wife, Kim Kardashian, has spoken out about his mental health in the past, citing that he has bipolar disorder, a formal diagnosis. But Kanye has also referred to this diagnosis as his quote-unquote superpower before in his songs. And it very well might be, from what I know about bipolar disorder, it can make you more creative. It's fair to take his erratic, very public and very provocative behavior and to surmise that he might be struggling right now. But honestly, none of us are qualified to diagnose someone or even to really try and draw any conclusions on that front. It would be unfair. We don't know exactly what's going on with this person we've never met before. But the most important thing to note here is that being anti-Semitic is not being creative or being a free thinker. In fact, it's one of the oldest lines of thinking in the book. Hate speech is as old as time, and nothing about wishing death on Jewish people is original or new. That's exactly what makes his comments so disgusting. And for our last story today, a potential legit serial killer may be loose in Stockton, California, and surrounding areas. So over in Stockton, CA, there may be a legit serial killer on the loose, y'all. Starting in spring of last year, there was a string of shootings in the area, and there's 7 of them now that police have finally drawn a connection between. You see, they seemed kind of random at first glance, just someone getting shot. But with so many adding up, they're starting to realize that these crimes likely have the same perpetrator. Surveillance footage is also helping them in figuring this out, but so has a survivor who was able to provide police with details about the shooter and his MO. So far, most victims were within Stockton city limits, except one that we also know about in Oakland. And all of the victims, except for one, have been male. And that surviving victim was the one female victim. Now, I'm not sure why they think this killer suddenly switched things up and shot a woman instead of a man, but from what I've read, it seems pretty definitive that she was a victim of this same killer. Police must have some reason for thinking that because it seems like this is a done deal. They really believe this is the same guy. She described him as 5'10" to 6 feet tall with a slim build. He wore all dark clothing with a hoodie over his head and a black face mask. This is the figure that we can also see captured on camera. She was unsure as to his race because of his hoodie and his face mask. None of these victims were robbed, and there does not appear to be any sort of gang relation to the killings. So, serial killer, you guys. As of right now, there is a $125,000 reward out for information leading to an arrest. If you know who this person might be or have a tip that could be helpful to law enforcement, please call the Stockton Police Department at 209-937-8377. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "Joy is what happens to us when we allow ourselves to recognize how good things really are." If you enjoyed this episode, please consider becoming a patron of our podcast. For $7.99 a month, you can unlock tons of perks like breaking news text messages so that you're never out of the loop. Tons of bonus episodes are already up there ready for you to binge, and a discussion board full of networking opportunities and much more. Go to www.patreon.com/sugarfree media today to become a patron. This is the best way to support our show. Our patrons make News du Jour possible. But a couple other ways to support our podcast are rate and review on whatever podcast platform you use to listen, share on your social media, you have influence, tell your friends, family, and colleagues that you love News du Jour and why you listen. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram, just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok, and sugarfree_media on Twitter. We also have a weekend newsletter called Dreamers Digest that's full of dreamy content recommendations for your weekend and a life update from yours truly. Sign up today on our website, www.sugarfreemedia.co. Our music is by Joey Lavoie and Nicholas Foster. Our cover art is by Hannah Pierce Photography. Our Sugar Free Media logo is by Catherine Jezik Designs. Any twinkling or little footsteps you might hear in the background are by my dog, Rhett. He's a rescue pup and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour. Broadcasting from Oklahoma.